As industries get bigger, the case for a general industrial union gets stronger. Methods of production change rapidly. An oil refinery, for instance, calls for a vast and ever-changing range of skills from its workers. A modern union must have an equal range of knowledge and experience to enable it to serve its members fully. While skills become more diverse, ownership tends to become more concentrated. The rise of massive international companies with appropriately massive headquarters has blurred many of the once clear distinctions between one industry and another. Work people have to create their own equally powerful organizations to fight for their rights. And this is where, by effectively taking account of these developments, the TNG comes into its own. On the employer's side, industrial and financial power grows daily. So does political support. It's as well that to match that power on the workers' side, there is just across the square a union which can effectively represent every employee in the industrial complex, from the canteen to the typing force. Half a century ago, in a world very different from ours, the TGWU got off the ground. Since then, there have been tremendous advances in material standards of living. TNG members have fought for and won improved standards in new industries as well as in traditional ones, and have fought as well to bring about progressive economic policies which would redistribute national wealth in favor of those who make the greatest contribution to society.
Hi, my name's Maria Feeney and I'm a Unite community member. I'm here today to start a project on the history of TNG as its centenary is coming up in 2022. I'm really excited for this project as I myself don't know much about our trade union's history, and it'll be great to learn from lessons from the past and how we're going to progress in the future. To do this, I'm going to interview Jake McLeod, one of our retired members and a previous TNG officer, Elaine Dougal, who is currently a Unite's Equalities Officer and a previous young TNG rep, and finally Dave Moxham, the Deputy General Secretary of STUC. I really can't wait to learn more about our history. Hi Jake, my name's Maria.
Pleased to meet you, Maria.
Nice to meet you. So I'm here today to have a chat about the history of TNG and what your role was in TNG.
Well, quite a checkered career actually, to be quite honest, you know, but I was born in 1947.
Okay.
Right? So...
long time ago.
Yes. I actually became an electrician apprentice in 1962. And that was with the EETPU at that particular time. I joined the Transport and General Workers Union some 30 years ago. And I became a full-time official.
Right, okay. So what did you do when you were being an official?
What happens in here is that you were delegated certain responsibilities in certain areas of work environment to look after. And for instance, I worked for Turnock's Biscuits. You know, I looked after Turnock's Biscuits. It was a marvellous, and it was probably the first time for a man like myself to be involved with 400 women.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I wasn't involved in that environment before. I was usually in building sites or whatever. And it was an education, and a good education. It brought you a real good idea of how the other half got on in life. Yeah. I retired, what was it, 8 years ago? 8 years ago,
so you've been enjoying retirement?
Very much so, you know. But, and as you see today, we had retired members branch, and probably one of the biggest attended branches in the TNG, you know. So, no, I've had a good career. I was on the blacklist.
Right, so how did that come about?
I started my time with a company and I went right through until I was 21. And my father was a shop steward in the railway.
Okay.
And we're on a site that wasn't going very well, so I took the shop steward's job.
Right.
So in 1968, I was put in the blacklist.
Okay.
Which I didn't know about. You didn't know about these things then. And I had to move about the country to get work
Oh God.
You know.
So was that a hard time for you?
Very hard
Yeah.
time. And I went to England, I got a job in the shipyards in Barrow-in-Furness. I came back, and unfortunately the blacklist still operated when I came home again. So it was a difficult time, not only for me, but for my family.
Yeah.
You know, that was a really difficult time. But at the end of the day, you get on with life and you have to just survive. And actually, when I'm sitting here with you just now, you actually forget the difficult times, and you're more inclined to think about the good times. But one of the things I really think that's important now is the amount of young people I have met who have got guts and determination is still there.
That's good.
And I think that's a great thing. And it's now up to the union to harness that energy and move them forward in a way that's beneficial to everyone.
Yeah, so we can move forward within the union movement.
Yes. Because of Jimmy Caldwell in the community branch, because we don't have to take time off work now that we're retired, we have freedom.
Sounds great.
Yes, we have freedom to do things. And I remember standing outside Sauchiehall Street, outside Sports Direct, and I thought it was smashing. One young lad went into Sports Direct and put the leaflets under tracksuits and all the rest of it. So that and that's what did we used to call it many years ago? That's not listening to anybody else. That's just getting the head down and getting tore in and getting it done, right? And I saw a lot of injustices way back then as well. Now, when these injustices occur, you either sit on your backside and do nothing, or you get up, get the head down and get tore in about it. And that's what I decided to do. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. Like I'm here today with the retired members, some of them have been my friends for 60 years.
That's nice.
You know. Now, I think that's so important that you don't lose touch. You keep in touch.
Progress throughout the movement
Aye.
together.
Now, what we can do to help youth can only benefit society in general. Now, you're sitting talking to me, and I'm going to say to you is, why do you think it's worthwhile joining a union?
I just don't understand why it wouldn't be. It's like talking about the injustices. Even today, with precarious work, 0-hour contracts on the rise, and younger people getting paid less than their maturer colleagues, it's a disgrace, and we need to all come together and fight back against it. And the way I think we can do that is through the union. There's no other way to do it. Yourself are involved with the STUC, and more specifically the Youth Committee. So I want to know what your role is in that, and maybe a little bit of history about it.
Yeah, so I act as the secretary to the Youth Committee, a quite old-fashioned term, but one which means that I'm the officer who ensures that their meetings go to time, that ensures that the work that they decide to do and their confidence is then delivered as part of the main body of the work that the STUC does.
So how did that come about, the Youth Committee?
Well, so the Youth Committee was formed 80 years ago, 80 years ago this year, in 1938, just before the turn of the war. And it was a time when obviously unions had for the last 20 years been growing in strength, but as it isn't necessarily unusual, generally young people didn't have a voice and young workers didn't have a voice. And the Youth Committee was formed to ensure that that voice was heard loud and clear.
So do you think it's important that young people have a role within trade unions?
I think it's absolutely vital, and I think particularly with the way that work is changing now, that young people are doing work which is more and more precarious. That voice has never been more important, and allowing young people to self-organise, to set their own agenda, to drive the agenda, sometimes to disagree with the agenda of the mainstream trade union movement is so important.
So what are some of the things that the Youth Committee have done in the past and some of their successes?
Well, I mean, I think one of the most important things the Youth Committee has managed to do over the years is bring solidarity and a new face and a young face to some of the key campaigns. So the STUC Youth Committee was massively involved during the miners' strike in supporting the miners in the 80s. More latterly, and particularly during the period of the Thatcher government when young people's wages suffered, they campaigned for the minimum wage. And more importantly, and unfortunately, we've still not won this yet, for equality of the minimum wage across all ages.
So what do you hope for in the future? Do you hoping for equality in the minimum wage, and how, if you've got plans and how you're going to go about doing this?
Yes, I mean, the Youth Committee has supported a particular campaign in Scotland called the Better Than Zero campaign, which really wants to put power in the hands of young workers in the workplace to set their own agenda and begin to fight back. And we've seen an enormous change over the last couple of years, I believe, in young people's consciousness in terms of saying, you see the work we do, it's just as valuable.
Yeah.
And if they say it's just as valuable, then the next step is to say, why wouldn't we join a union too? So moving away from that idea that trade unions are for older people or people in particular professions, and saying that it's for everybody.
So the creation of the STUC Youth Committee, there was an argument from the TNG that we shouldn't be segregating off parts of the union. Why did you think that was, and what are your views on that?
Yeah, I think what the Transport Union was saying at the time was that to split up the trade union movement into different sections would somehow divide it. And that's an argument that we've seen. It was certainly expressed at the time that the STUC Women's Committee was set up, and by some even subsequently now that its other equality committees have been summed up. And although it may be for a laudable reason that people don't want to do that, I think it fails to recognise the fact that it's really, really hard to get voice within within the trade union movement as set up. And it doesn't mean just because you have that voice and the ability to set your own agenda and your own policy that you wouldn't or shouldn't be involved in the wider movement as a whole. But getting that voice down, getting that agenda set is really, really important. And I think that we've managed really successfully since the time that the Transport Union thought that was a bad idea to show that you can do both things. But it also shows that we always have disagreements in the trade union movement, and that's not necessarily a bad thing either.
Hi Elaine, my name's Maria, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Maria.
So you are the Equalities Officer in Unite currently. So we're here today, I'm talking about the history of TNG, and I want to know what your role is within TNG and how you came from TNG to now the Equalities Officer.
Okay. Well, I have been a member of the Transport and General Workers Union since I was 17.
Okay.
My dad was a shop steward in the buses, and that's kind of where my kind of roots and my foundations for trade unionism was born. So I became active when I was about 22.
Okay.
And then I became a shop steward when I was 23, working in Glasgow City Council.
Right, okay.
And then Glasgow Museums Department, so now it's Culture and Leisure Services, but I was a workplace rep, and the reason I got involved was we were going through a huge restructuring in the council called Best Value Review, which meant that our jobs were going to be changed and potentially people could lose thousands of pounds. And, you know, I just felt that, you know, I had to step up to the plate as a young woman. We wanted to make sure that the jobs were secured, and I felt that I had some value to give as a representative of the Transport and General Workers then. 3 years ago we had 924 people who identified as disabled. We've got 1,115 people. So you just see the disparity. Those figures themselves tell a story of where people are in their communities and in their lives and in their work. That LGBT plus people feel more comfortable to present themselves as LGBT, but disabled members don't. And for me and for the trade union movement, we have to take cognizance of that, and we have to make sure that Unite is a trade union that is campaigning at the forefront for our members, for all of our members, and encouraging people to be who they are if they so wish, and not to be ashamed of if they have a disability. If they do have a disability and they're going to be treated less favourably or discriminated against, we will be there to support them 100%, and the same with any of our other members. So for me, going forward, you know, we have come a long way. And the TNG, when I became the Equalities Officer, or the Women's Officer as it's called, we had one LGBT member. So, and now you look at where we are. That certainly wasn't the case in our membership, but I think for Unite, we're a far more diverse union, and we've got so many different types of people who are members of our organisation, and that tells us that, you know, we're kind of breaking down those barriers ourselves. Our committee members go and visit our area activist committees, our regional industrial sector committees, and tell them about the work of the equalities committees, tell them about what the LGBT plus committee is doing. they donate, the branches donate to events that disabled members committee are having, LGBT Pride, all the Pride events that are happening. So that's what we're doing. We're kind of sharing that experience, we're educating our members, and hopefully there is an awareness. And if one other person in that workplace sees a piece of literature and they say, you know what, I'm LGBT or I'm disabled, I'm a young person, I'm black or I'm a woman, and I want to kind of get more involved. That's for us is moving forward. So it's making sure that we are inclusive and not just as a word or as a strapline. Equality at the heart of Unite. We want to make sure that is going to be the case in all of our sectors. So obviously I'm interested in what your experiences are as a young woman and a member of Unite. So can you give me a wee bit of an overview of how you get involved and what you think of us as a union?
So, yourself, firstly, I joined Unite because I was seeing all the great work they do. It kept coming up on my social media. They work with Better Than Zero, they were out campaigning with Sports Direct. I just seen it and it inspired me because you could see that there are injustices there. So I joined, and you'll know yourself, you go into rooms and you can be the only woman sometimes. And it can be motivating, but actually long term it gives you more motivation and a passion and a drive to keep going, because this isn't right, we should be more represented. However, I do like what you're saying, we've came such a long way, and I feel like progress has been made every step, but I don't think we should ever, like you said, ever take our foot off the pedal and always look for ways to improve. So that's why I joined. Basically, more so started off as what for the workers, but more so now that I feel like more women should have a say in the workplace. Yeah.
I mean, that's really important for myself as a woman in the trade union movement and as an equalities officer, because I think that, if we don't encourage our young women to take that first step and dip your toe in the water, I think that we're, you need to be at the table, and you need to be bringing your thoughts and your fresh approaches as young people, as young women, to try and make sure that we are reflective and representative, and we are on the right page when it comes to our ideas, our campaigns. So for that I thank you for your involvement.
Well, it was really interesting talking to you, and I can't wait to work with you in the future.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
That's it, lovely. Okay, right.
Wait, Emma, can you ask that person if
Right,
you
okay.
want
Could wait?
Mum.
Yeah, could you just give me 1 second to do this? Right, will I go now? Yes. Hi, my name's Carol Mockin and I'm a Unite community member. We're holding an event this evening in Cumnock Town Hall, really based around the May Day celebrations. We're showing the Dennis Skinner movie. The reason that we chose to do that is because Dennis Skinner spoke here in 1984 during the miners' strike. And we in our area feel it's important that people know about the history of the area, about the labour movement, about the trade unions. Trade union movement was very, very strong in the 80s and 90s and before. We have the famous Keir Hardie lived in Cumnock and always said that he, no matter where he was in the world, he was always in Cumnock time. Dennis Skinner spoke, and often when we were campaigning, people talk to us about that, and they say they remember him being here, and that although it was a really hard time in the area because it was during the miners' strike, there was a lot of hope when they were speaking at that particular rally. The community all came together, and it was a strong day for them when they made their voices as working people heard. I think in areas like Cumnock, small communities that have a really strong sense of their own area and have a real working class history, it's important that they know how much they contributed to working class history and to the trade union movement and labour movement as a whole. And I think if we can show them and remind them about that history, it helps for people to keep fighting for what is important for people in their work. Yeah, what we are hoping is that we've advertised it right across the social media and the local papers, saying to people that we want them to come along and tell us about their memories of Dennis Skinner, and that the movie shows Dennis as he is, and it lets people talk about what happened in their own area and how they would like to see things move on for working class people in Cumnock.
defence against isolation was one of the driving forces behind the amalgamation which brought the Transport and General Workers' Union into existence in 1922. The 14 separate unions who founded it gave up their own special interests and privileges for the sake of unity, and their decision and the political philosophy that lay behind it was proved to be right. This new union of dockers, lightermen, transport and vehicle workers, factory and office workers immediately became the biggest in Britain. Its strength was in its diversity. When members in one industry needed help, all the others were there behind them.
In Soho, couldn't guess his age. I found his empty journal. I filled up every page. I called up my state senator. They said he wasn't there. The secretary took my name, and man, she sounded scared. So I counted my misfortunes. I added up the blame. I picked through all the garbage. I checked off all the names. I read in the newspaper. They questioned all my friends. They hoped that they could find my